Okay, we're now starting chapter 6, which goes more into how do we change a graph than actually different types of functions. So what we want to do is just draw a simple graph and just sort of go through all the possible things we could actually do to it. I was thinking of having a little graph that looks a little strange. Just going to draw a picture. Let's see, how if I go from left to right? Go like this, and I'm going to put a little triangle that just goes up like this and down like this. And so how about if I make that like f of minus 2? Now what kind of things can we do with this that we've done before? We could do something like f of x plus 3. Notice that's an outside change. That just is a vertical change, so I should just lift it up 3, right? So I actually would have had to know how high that goes. Let's say that goes to 2. I'm going to get exactly the same graph, except it's going to go up like this. And instead of bottoming out at 0, it's going to bottom out at 3. And instead of topping off at 2, it's going to top off at 5. So outside changes are exactly the same way they were before, even though we were only doing that with quadratic functions. Now, let's try to make an inside change. An inside change. Here we go. So how about the same thing? F of x plus 3. Remember how this works. You can either think that you're moving the x-axis 3 to the right, or you can think that you're moving the graph 3 to the left. Whichever you're more comfortable with is just fine. Unless you're going to be a math major in geometry, it's not going to make that much difference. What I'm going to do is say, hey, instead of this graph hitting the origin, it's going to hit something like that. It's going to look up like that, down like that. Ta-da! As long as I actually say that's still 2, I think we're good. That's just fine. Let's talk about a couple other things. There are things called reflections, and you probably have seen these before with parabolas and circles. If I take my original function and I just put a minus sign on the outside, what does that do? Well, what it does is it takes every positive y value and makes them negative. So instead of topping out at 2, it bottoms out at -2. So I'm going to go get something like this. And you can see if you actually look over here like this, this is just a mirror reflection of this. So it really is a reflection, but people will usually not say call it reflection. They'll say what we did is we just flipped it over the x-axis. So if there's a minus sign outside, that's all it does. It just flips it over the x-axis. That's an outside reflection. What if we want an inside reflection? So let's put f of minus x, something like that. What does that do? Well, the other one took a positive y values and made them negative. What is this thing going to do? Well, over here, all the x values are negative, and it's going to turn them all into positive x values. So what you're going to get is something that just looks like this over here. You notice the y values didn't change. All that happened is this -2 got turned into 2, this -1 got turned into 1. The height didn't change at all, right? And if you notice, this is the mirror reflection of that. So this is just a reflection, not a big deal. We can try to combine a couple at a time. Let's see here, what if I go something like minus f x minus 1 plus 2? How am I supposed to do that? Well, I'm going to describe it to myself first. It is going to move it 1 to the right, and then it's going to flip it upside down, and then it's going to move the whole thing up 2. And I think we could do this in steps. How about if we do this in steps and we'll have each step be a different color? So the first thing I'm going to do is move it 1 to the right. So moving it 1 to the right is going to turn it into that. The next thing I want to do is I want to flip it upside down. And so I'll put that one in red. So it's going to turn it, and it's going to go like this. That is a reflection. Finally, I want to take that whole graph and add 2. It's just going to lift up the whole thing 2. And I'm going to get something that looks like this. And we get our graph. So as long as we work from the inside out, it's perfectly fine. If we try to work from right to left, we can cause a lot of problems. But you notice that's what I did. I went inside, and then I went a little bit more outside, and then a little bit more outside. And if you do that, you'll be just fine every time we try to move graphs around.